Welcome to the Depth Dive. We're here to take a stack of source materials reports, intelligence analysis, diplomatic cables, and really cut straight to the core insights.
That's right.
Our mission for you today is to give you a clear, factual map of the critical global events that have unfolded over, well, the last 2 weeks. We're talking late December 2025 into early January 2026.
And what the sources clearly show is that we're tracking a very high-stakes moment. It's like a massive split screen. On one side, you have relentless escalation on the front lines, and that's running parallel to some intense diplomatic maneuvering around a comprehensive peace proposal.
So our goal is to distill the facts, identify the different courses of action, and deliver that context without generating fear.
Exactly.
The geographic scope for this deep dive is vast. We're going to start in Ukraine, where the military conflict has, frankly, reached new levels of intensity.
Then we'll move to the diplomatic battleground.
And finally, we'll track these major geopolitical realignments stretching far afield from Central Asia all the way to a genuine shockwave in the Western Hemisphere.
And this deep dive, which gives you access to the kind of information used by high-level policy analysts, is brought to you by ProWave AI. It's generated by the AI-powered news application, Stylo News.
And that context is really crucial for you, the listener. Stylo News is the consumer application that's derived from Stylo Intel Ops software.
Right.
And that software is engineered for enterprise operations. We're talking government, military, business, any group that needs immediate, reliable insight.
So essentially, you are getting unique access to a tool designed to support global decision makers, the kind of people who require unparalleled clarity.
We're going to guide you through 3 distinct areas of analysis today. First, the military reality and the rise of hybrid warfare.
Second, the fundamental diplomatic conflict over President Zelensky's 20-point peace plan.
And finally, those subtle but I think very significant shifts in global alliances. Okay, let's unpack this. We begin where the conflict is hottest, on the ground in Ukraine. The end of 2025 was really defined by Russian military advances. The sources confirm Russia achieved its largest territorial gains in 2025 since the initial invasion.
That's right, and they've consolidated control over nearly 1/5 of Ukraine's territory.
1/5. That statistic, it's critical not just for military control, but for political leverage, isn't it?
It's a huge piece of leverage. Consolidating that much territory gives Moscow a massive strategic bargaining chip heading into any future peace talks. It fundamentally shifts the baseline for negotiation.
And those gains are being held through this relentless campaign targeting infrastructure. I see experts are starting to call it infra warfare.
Exactly. This isn't just about the front line. The sustained Russian campaign against the Ukrainian railway network is, in many ways, the backbone of this entire phase of the war.
The sources document over 1,100 attacks on the network in 2025 alone.
Just think about that. Over 1,100.
It's a staggering number. What's the resulting cost?
Yeah.
And the strategic implication?
Well, the damage is estimated at $5.8 billion. And you have to understand, that isn't just a number. It is a direct blow to Ukraine's economy and its defense viability.
It cripples their logistics.
It severely cripples internal logistics.
Yeah.
It makes it exponentially harder to move military material to the front. And at the same time, it suffocates their ability to export grain.
Which makes it harder to fund the defense effort itself.
Precisely.
And this aggression has certainly spilled into the new year. Early January saw these coordinated, massive aerial assaults.
That's right. Take the January 5th coordinated aerial assault. Russia launched approximately 165 drones, mostly the Shahed 136 type.
Targeting Kyiv and the surrounding regions.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the expert interpretation. Many analysts saw this high-volume attack not as a decisive strike, but as reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance.
A deliberate, high-volume probing operation designed to identify and ultimately exhaust Ukraine's air defenses.
A reconnaissance wave of 165 aircraft. That's a clear measure of how high the volume of threat is every single night.
It is.
But Ukraine has adapted. They're pushing back with their own offensive capabilities, particularly these strategic drone campaigns.
Ukraine has become really a pioneer in this regard. They're actively targeting Russian military economic capabilities deep inside Russian territory.
So we've seen successful strikes against crucial energy infrastructure in the southern regions.
Yes, notably hitting the Temryuk seaport fuel storage, the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery, and even the Syzran refinery way out in the Samara region.
It demonstrates a clear strategy then.
A very clear one. Degrade Russia's ability to refine and transport the fuel it needs to sustain the conflict.
Now, on the crucial subject of support, The funding dynamics shifted, dramatically in 2025. We can't overlook this.
This is a major inflection point. U.S. military support drastically reduced to, well, a mere zero point 0.5 billion euros.
Wait, €500 million? That's almost nothing compared to the previous year's commitments.
It's a tiny fraction.
Is that seen by European partners as a clear political signal that the U.S. is stepping back, regardless of what the Trump administration is saying publicly?
It creates significant uncertainty, yes. And Europe has tried to compensate. European countries stepped up dramatically, increasing their assistance to over 30 billion euros.
That's a huge increase.
It is. It's highly significant. However, it is not fully compensated for the U.S. shortfall. And that adds, a palpable strain to Ukraine's long-term defense sustainability.
And looking beyond just the material, we're also seeing key strategic integration. For the first time, Ukraine participated directly in NATO's Article 5 scenario training exercises.
That is a powerful signal. For the listener, Article 5 is the foundation of NATO's collective defense. An attack on one is an attack on all. So allowing Ukraine to participate, even if they aren't members, it signals a significant deepening of defense integration and strategic alignment with the West. They're being trained for that full collective defense umbrella.
Now we have to address the shadow conflict, the hybrid threats, the information maneuvers. This is where the lines between war and non-war just blur.
The information warfare is intensifying, and rapidly. We saw allegations emerge from the Kremlin, for instance, claiming Ukraine is preparing chemical provocations in the Kharkiv Oblast.
And analysts widely view this as what? A pretext.
A clear pretext for potential future Russian war crimes or severe escalations. You justify them ahead of time.
And this threat isn't just confined to Ukraine. The German Defense Ministry reported escalating Russian hybrid attacks targeting critical infrastructure across Europe.
This suggests preparation for a wider conflict beyond the current borders. When we talk about hybrid attacks here, we mean sabotage, cyber infiltration.
Targeting power grids.
Exactly. Power grids, transportation systems, all within NATO countries themselves.
Then there's that bizarre incident of the alleged Ukrainian drone attack on President Putin's residence near Valdai.
Right. Russia presented this as evidence of deep Ukrainian hostility.
But the unified Western response was swift and, frankly, dismissive.
It was. U.S. intelligence and Western officials universally rejected these claims as unsubstantiated. What's perhaps most notable is that U.S. President Trump publicly refuted the Russian narrative on January 5th.
That public refutation is key.
It is. It underscores this ongoing diplomatic struggle over truth and justification. It's refusing to let that Russian narrative gain any international traction.
Which brings us to the diplomatic front.
It's easy to focus only on the drones and the shelling, but all that military pressure, it inevitably leads us back to the negotiating table. The focal point of diplomacy has been the 20-point proposal unveiled by Ukrainian President Zelensky on December 24th.
And this was after intensive talks with the U.S.
That's right. This plan is ambitious, aimed at a final status resolution. Sources suggest it's nearly finished, about 90% complete.
So what are the cornerstones of this complex document?
The plan has three core non-negotiable demands from Kyiv's perspective. First, security guarantees model explicitly on NATO's collective defense, a binding Article 5 style commitment. Second, Ukraine's scheduled EU accession. And third, a massive estimated $800 billion post-conflict economic recovery fund.
$800 billion, that's an incredible figure. Is there any real concrete global commitment to fund that scale of investment while the conflict is still actively simmering?
And that's where the plan faces its biggest hurdle. The financial commitment is designed to incentivize peace, guarantee reconstruction. But the funding mechanisms, the binding pledges, those remain the most pragmatic question mark.
Because they depend entirely on global willingness to invest in a potentially fragile peace.
Precisely.
Meanwhile, Moscow's rejection of the plan was immediate. It was critical, issued on December 25th.
And they have their own set of non-negotiable demands. The Kremlin demands fundamental amendments, which, well, they essentially dismantle the security core of the Ukrainian proposal.
What are their main objections?
The absence of guarantees on NATO's non-expansion eastward, and the failure to explicitly affirm Ukraine's perpetual neutral status.
And beyond security.
They demand the immediate lifting of all sanctions, the return of seized Russian assets, and, crucially, a resolution of territorial issues that favors Russian claims.
So we have two completely distinct and hardened sets of red lines. Let's look at the perspectives of the key decision-makers driving these.
Well, President Zelensky is maintaining high pressure. He's emphasizing the absolute necessity of enforceable binding guarantees for future security.
And he even escalated his political demands on January 5th, specifically urging Britain and France to deploy troops to Ukraine.
A demonstration of enhanced Western military involvement. It's arguably the highest stakes request yet.
What about the hardline from Moscow?
President Putin is equally uncompromising. He has set stringent conditions for peace, including the demand that millions of Ukrainians now residing in Russia must participate in any future Ukrainian elections.
Which Western analysts see as a politically unfeasible demand.
It's viewed as a poison pill, potentially designed to stall any genuine progress. And he also issued these stark warnings of Russia's readiness for a direct military conflict with Europe if provoked.
And where does the U.S. stand in all this? After the Mar-a-Lago talks on December 28th, the Trump administration has been engaged, but pragmatic.
Their position remains cautiously non-committal on the binding nature of the enforcement measures. I mean, the U.S. denial of the Russian drone claim certainly underscores support for Ukraine's diplomatic position. But that core commitment to providing an enforceable Article 5-style guarantee remains a critical point of deliberation. It highlights a very pragmatic approach that avoids overcommitment.
And if we look at how the rest of the world is feeling about this, we see a clear split in international opinion.
You can really synthesize the global sentiment into two camps. On one side, you have international bodies like the UN calling for condemnation of attacks on civilians, adherence to international humanitarian law.
A view that has broad social media support.
Very broad support, advocating strongly for an immediate nonviolent peace. Then, on the other side, you have NATO and EU nations advocating for continued military support and enhanced deterrence.
While also monitoring the internal situation in Russia.
Exactly. Specifically reports of defense sector slowdowns and economic stagnation.
It's vital we look beyond the immediate conflict because the actions in Ukraine are accelerating significant shifts in global power dynamics. First, let's talk about that subtle but significant erosion of Russian dominance in Central Asia.
The shift here is marked by independence and pragmatism. Central Asian governments are aggressively pursuing what they call a multi-vector foreign policy.
Which means they're deliberately diversifying their dependencies away from Moscow.
That's it. And we see several concrete indicators of this pivot.
Such as?
The procurement of NATO weaponry rather than solely Russian arms, robust engagement with the EU on developing alternative transport routes that completely bypass Russia for trade.
And even expanding trade ties with Taliban-led Afghanistan.
Right. All of this signals a sovereign, pragmatic decision to minimize reliance on that historical Russian influence.
So while Russia is losing soft power in Central Asia, the greatest strategic shockwave for Moscow came from the Western Hemisphere.
This event was massive. On January 4th, the U.S. military intervened in Venezuela, executing missile strikes and, well, resulting in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
Why is the capture of Maduro such a profound strategic loss for Moscow right now, beyond just the symbolism?
Maduro's Venezuela was one of Russia's most strategic footholds in the entire Western Hemisphere. It provided military access, intelligence opportunities, a platform to project influence right on the U.S.'s doorstep.
And his removal forces a major recalibration.
A huge one. Especially through unilateral military action, it severely diminishes Moscow's overall regional influence and forces a major change in their global strategy.
The international reaction to this unilateral action was one of widespread condemnation.
Indeed. Key global players, Russia and China, strongly condemned the U.S. strikes. They emphasize foundational principles like respect for sovereignty and non-interference.
And then
Critically, the UN Secretary-General issued a stark warning that such unilateral military actions set dangerous precedents that fundamentally undermine international law. That global consensus against the action makes the U.S. move strategically very risky.
Now, to counterbalance that loss, we have to acknowledge Russia's continued success in Africa. They're actively filling voids there.
That is the counterpoint to their losses elsewhere. In December 2025, Moscow secured a strategic victory by delivering assault rifles, sniper rifles, and anti-tank rocket systems to Madagascar.
Following the October coup there.
Yes. This successful arms delivery signals Russia's expanding military influence on the continent. It demonstrates their continued great power competition strategy of, trading arms for strategic access.
So we've covered everything from reconnaissance drone attacks to the loss of a key Western Hemisphere ally for Moscow. What should the listener be watching for in the immediate future?
On the diplomatic front, the focus has to be on the Paris summit outcomes, which just took place on January 6th.
Okay, and specifically,
Look for any concrete developments regarding the multinational security guarantee framework for Ukraine and any new coordination on military support.
militarily, continued Russian readiness for a mass missile strike on Ukraine remains paramount, especially after those high-volume reconnaissance attacks.
And we also have to watch for the ongoing implementation of enhanced hybrid threat countermeasures in Germany and across NATO's eastern flank. The alliance members are taking those sabotage reports very seriously.
And geopolitically,
The immediate focus is twofold. First, monitoring the highly volatile political transition in Venezuela post-Maduro and its long-term impact on regional stability. Second, watching Russia's corresponding strategic maneuvers globally to offset that loss of influence.
if we connect all these threads back together, the escalation, the peace plan, the strategic losses, what's the core insight here? What defines this period?
What's fascinating is the tension between Russia's strategic goals and its execution. Despite achieving its largest territorial gains in 2025, the internal cost is mounting severely.
Economically, militarily.
Yes, economically, militarily through defense sector slowdowns, and geopolitically through undeniable setbacks like the pivot in Central Asia and the loss of Venezuela.
And these external pressures aren't abstract.
No, they're the factors that could intensify internal debate in Moscow regarding the flexibility and, well, the acceptability of Zelensky's 20-point peace plan.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the simultaneous weakening of Russia's economic stability and its global strategic footholds continues, how might that mounting pressure ultimately affect the Kremlin's calculus on negotiating the unresolved territorial disputes?
The hardest red line of all.
The hardest red line of all in the peace plan in the coming weeks. That's the high-stakes question moving forward.
And this deep dive, giving you distilled executive-level insights, was generated by Stylo News.
Stylo News is a powerful tool. It's designed to cut through all the information overload. It's a mobile and computer application that lets you download and customize personal intelligence-style briefs.
And it draws from hundreds of traditional news sources and social media platforms, including X.
It truly is AI-powered news on demand. We encourage you, our listener, to gain this unique advantage used by global decision makers.
You can subscribe to Stylo News today at www.stylonews.com. You can choose the Executive Monthly Plan for $19.99 a month or the Executive Annual Plan for $199.99 a year. And crucially, you can start with a 7-day free trial.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. We appreciate you trusting us with your time and attention as we unpack these incredibly complex events.
We encourage you to request topics for future deep dives, and be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platform.
We'll be here next time, ready to bring clarity to the noise.